How you doing today, Angela?
Hello, I'm awesome. I'm glad I'm getting this opportunity. So I'm even better.
This interview has taken, I want to say 4 months at
Oh,
least when we
it's
first we
been that
first made a
long.
connection. For those who don't know, Angela bakes cakes. She designs cakes. She's really good at it. She has a YouTube channel called A Taste of Heaven.
Yeah.
So being a connoisseur of sweets, when I saw this particular YouTube channel, I began to look at some of the things that she had done. And I just reached out really with an idea, man, I could bring her on here to speak about cooking. But after our first conversation, I realized that Angela had more to say and share with the world
Mhm.
than cakes. So how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you. And I'm glad God brought you to my channel because I was watching you on Facebook and it's awesome how God works. And I was like, man, I sure wish I could get in and have a one-to-one conversation. And look how God did it. It took some time, but it's getting done. So I thank God for that.
Definitely. Is there anything that you'd like to discuss before I get into my subject matter? Because I have some favorite things I want to talk to you about.
Not at all. You just go for it.
Okay. So, what I've seen on your TikTok posts since Mr. Kevin Samuels passed away, you were basically asking men a lot of questions concerning, well, how did you guys feel for or against some of the things that Mr. Samuels was saying? And what struck me as strange is I often would hear you respond to some rebuttals. And you informed me earlier, some people make some comments, some that you thought were worth responding to, and others nonsense. And so, why do you feel it's helpful to draw out a lot of African American men in a conversation about some of the subjects that Kevin Samuels spoke about?
My passion is really goes beyond him. I've always been a very vocal person, and my passion is always for my people. I love my people, and I want us to be in a better position. But I am a very weird woman because I'm a woman who still believes in patriarchy.
Mm.
Many women do not. They believe in feminism and all this stuff. I don't. I believe the man is the head. I believe he's the protection. I believe he's the provider, and I'm the helper. That's what I believe. But and many women usually believe in that also. But in today's society, it's kind of fearful to say that, you know, and we've been put into a position where independence, the ideology of independence, is our soapbox, I'll say.
Mm.
But it's really just a wall that we've built as protection. So originally I started talking about bettering the relationship between men and women. But then I got attacked by men. Men started putting out, well, yeah, the woman needs to do this and what, yeah, the woman needs to do that. But I'm thinking, yo, brother, you need to do. And then we all fall in line. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because I see the family structure, if I look at it just like an organization, um, a company only fails with poor leadership. I don't care how bad the employers are. It still can be successful is if there's good leadership. So I kind of try what I've been talking about lately and what I have a passion for are children. And I see the reason I believe what I'm seeing, and I'm reading this book called what is it called? Oh, I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna remember the name, but it's talking about boys, and that's what we're losing. We're losing our boys. So how do we regain our boys and all that they need? Putting a father in their lives. That's what our boys need in their lives. So that's what I've really been talking about. Our fathers standing up and being fathers and being active, not just financially supportive, because they need more than that. It's not about the money. It's about you being active in your son's life and he feels secure, because it not only determines his livelihood in the streets, in society, it determines his relationships, especially emotional relationships with the opposite sex.
Okay. And so when you're sharing that, the first thing that jumped out in my mind is socialization. And I'm just going to give my experience. My experience, I was raised by a single mother. She had me when she was 20, and my father was not around. And true story, in 1979 in Los Angeles, California, I had come in from playing in the park. And my mother had told me a few weeks earlier, we're going to go see your dad because you've never met him. And I want you guys to have a relationship. At the time, I was 9 years old. And so we had been up there maybe 2 weeks, and I came in from the park, and he was on one side of a living room and my mother was on the other side. In this particular apartment complex, his mother owned it. This is in 1979. His mother owned the complex. And so basically I could run and do whatever I wanted to do. And so when I came in, she made a statement. She said, listen, in the morning, I'm leaving for Atlanta. And so if you want to stay here with your dad, I understand. But in the morning, I'm leaving for Atlanta. And she said, I told you before I brought you here, I never liked your dad. She said, and I came to try to work things out with him for your sake. And so here I am, a 9-year-old, and the first thought that came in my mind was, man, this apartment complex. And at the time, my father was attending UCLA, and basically he owned half of a limousine service, and he was going to school for architecture. That is 1979. And so my mind was like, man, I can have what I want to. He never corrects me. He just lets me rip and run. And then a sobering thought came to my mind, and it was the fact that, man, I can't let my mama go to Atlanta alone. I got to look out for my mother. And I'm bringing that story up to say my socialization as a young man, looking at my father, looking at my uncles, was to be responsible.
Right.
Not to lord over the household, but be responsible. But here's a funny fact. My uncles all cook better than my mother's sisters. And my grandmother couldn't cook at all. And she's from Mississippi. And so literally what I'm showing you, my grandfather, best cook in the house. My two uncles, best cook in the house. But guess what? Be responsible. Take care of the household, meaning protect and serve. And so the reason that I bring that up when I speak to a different women, I always ask them, who do you think showed the man that you're upset with, or that disappointed, or that cheated? Generally one of those categories. Who do you think showed him how to be a man? And they're like, he knows how to be a man. And I said, that does not make sense.
He doesn't.
You are telling me out of your mouth, you and I are at peace. We're not at odds. You're telling me that he should know. And I'm telling you that there are things that I did not know as a young man, because I knew what my mother taught me. And so the reason I'm giving that background to come all the way up, I remember when I was in college, and this is just a fact, a lot of young men between 18 and 24 who were having children. I have no children, but they did not look as they did not look at the children that they were fathering as, that's my boy, I want to get him to my name. They looked at them as objects.
Obligations.
And what that looks like is, I'm going to dress you. I'm going to give you a cool name. I'm going to make sure that you got a fresh haircut because you represent me. But it was not for the young child, whether it was a girl or a boy. It was for their ego. And so the reason that I just set the stage in my own life for that, that's why in 2022, some of the things that you just discussed, I totally agree with it. But I think that there is a missing piece of these discussions in the fact that a lot of men are being asked questions that truly they've never gotten with themselves to find out the answers. My closing remark on that would be something like this. The first vehicle that I purchased for myself, I didn't purchase it because it was my favorite vehicle. I purchased it because it was going to garner me the attention. So literally I'm stating that I didn't even know what kind of vehicle I wanted. So when you say, what kind of woman do you like? For me, I'm not speaking for another male. The kind of woman that I like was built upon what was accepted the most. What did most men want to have? And these are the types of questions that I've spent the last 25, 30 years just getting to know me, and not to share that I'm somebody, but to share there are a lot of men who have not taken the time to get to know themselves. And so when women or anyone else begins to question them about the whys, they really don't know. And when you don't know something and somebody's questioning journey, you become combative. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I agree with everything you said. And the thing that sticks out to me is a boy can never get to know himself in today's society if a father who gives them their identity is not there. So that's one reason that they're lost. The father helps you develop your identity. And and a lot of men, you know, I'm not, like I say, I'm weird. I'm not the type of mother to say that I could raise a man. I tell people all the time, I couldn't pick a good man. How am I raise one? You know what I'm saying? So that's not logical. I could raise a good human being. I can raise my children to be respectful and kind. But as far as what a man is to do or who he is to be, all I can tell you is I believe a man is a protector and provider. But before he even gets to that stage, he has an identity. And his identity is built in from his interactions and experiences with his father. You know, I have a thing I had on my page, and people seem they didn't really understand that, but I don't believe if boys had fathers, they don't need guns. So the young men today carry guns as a mean of protection because they feel unprotected. But if they have a father, they have a sense of protection. So they don't feel that they need a gun. So it's to me, the father is one of the, I'll say, if I had to put them in order, the father is the most important to me because he develops so much in a man. And he also teaches the daughter what she needs to look at for a man. For me, the mother is the empathy. She's the counselor, but the father is the structure. He's the identity. He's the provider. He's the security. He has so much more responsibility to me. And how socialized right now with when you're in a single parent household, like you said, you had to go protect your mother. And so that's why these young men are carrying guns today, because they feel I have to protect myself and I have to protect my mother. I have to protect my siblings. So that's what we're getting into right now. But you made a good point, and I never thought about that. A lot of the questions that women ask, men can't really answer because no one's taught them what the answer should be. So that's an awesome point. And I'm gonna have to think deep about that, but because it really was profound to me. But I think I know that the answer is the father's being around. And you know, like you said, your father wasn't there. You wasn't till 9 years old that you met him. This is the story in so many of our lives. You know what I'm saying? The first disappointment for most of us, first rejection that most of us feel is the lack of a father. You know what I'm saying? So we go into our relationships and we're functioning from a level of being traumatized because of the rejection we felt for not having a father. You know, so it just makes such a big difference for me. My dad was in my life, but I saw my mom go through a lot of things that she shouldn't have to go through, and my dad doing a lot of things that he shouldn't have done, that if he would have been better, she could have been better. So because my father was a drug addict, and what's so weird, my father was a drug addict and I married a drug addict. So that shows you how everything is just a circle, and how that great of either directly or indirectly that father's presence or absence is in a child's life, how much that affects our future.
I really agree with that. And there were two things I really want to get on before I forget. One, when I heard you make that statement, because I constantly think about my mother, even though she's passed away. If you would have told my mother that she could not raise me the way I needed to be raised, then she would have not only refuted that, she would have become combative concerning that. I can imagine if a single mother or a divorced mother is listening to what you're saying, I would think they're going to immediately, I'm going to cut you off, not because what you're saying is not accurate, but because they are in a situation, a set of circumstances that they cannot change.
Right.
And rather than realizing, listen, I understand you're upset why I said it. I'm not saying that God can't work through you. I'm saying that that's not the original way it was designed. And the way I try to help people understand this is this. If you believe in the Bible, then the way God designed it is that a man and a woman would come together, have sex, and they're going to be together for the rest of their natural lives. Not going to give all the examples of if one died first and remarried, but so how many of the average married people in America came together as virgins? Not many. But does that stop the fact or negate the fact God has used some people who did not marry as virgins to do great and mighty things in his name? And as a matter of fact, a lot of times be great examples in the body of Christ. But originally the design was not for them to have had one or more sexual partners before they came together. And so that's what I say concerning single mothers raising kids, or I'm even going to say a single father. That was not the intended design. And so whenever God works in spite of, that's mercy.
That's right.
That's great. That's right. But to try to create a fact out of something that's not a fact, it's not going to work. And it's a fact that children are designed according to the word of God. And when I say design, meaning their makeup, there is a part that the father plays, there's a part that the mother plays. And when they play their parts, that's not to say that's going to be a perfect child, but that is the perfect set of circumstances. The child has to, of course, on their own accord, as they come into different understanding, decide, I'm going to listen, I'm not going to listen. And so I just wanted to say that because somebody might watch this, and I don't want them to do what they do a lot of time with posts on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I hear something I don't like and I click it off, but I don't stay long enough to get the understanding. And so I just want to share that. And then when you were saying what you believe, I commend the fact that you're not just sharing out of opinion. You believe what you believe a lot of times based either on the Bible or I've noticed in your different posts that you do research. And that's awesome. I think that's awesome because we all have opinions, but we all don't necessarily study or search to learn more so that we can engage in conversations like this. And so as we go forward, I'm going to ask this question, and I hope it comes out clearly.
Yeah.
A lot of times people try to place the blame on men, women, or children, meaning this. A lot of times people will look at Chicago, see all the shooters and say, those young people, they out of control. They out of control. Or even where you're from, Port Arthur, they'll look around and they'll say, these young people, they're out of control. And so they try to put the burden on the young person going somewhere. Or they'll look at a woman and say, well, if she wasn't so masculine, or if she wasn't trying to run it, or if she didn't run her mouth as much as she does, she would have a good man. So we're going to put the blame on the woman. Or, man, all those black kids, they violent, they dumb. All they do is listen to rap. They get what they deserve. And we put the burden of, we know that the African-American male makes up, although it's 12 or 13% of the US population, we make up a majority of the prison population. And so the burden seems to be put on them. My question to you is, do you believe that the systems that are in place, the educational system, the judicial system, the child welfare system, do you think that those systems that are in place bear responsibility more so than society has given them responsibility for, concerning the condition of young African-American men, single or divorced African-American women, and adult African-American men? Is that question clear to you?
Do you think the system is causing us to be in the condition that we're in?
Yes, because statistics and facts will show that whether it's New York, California, or Texas, the individuals that are least likely served in the systems, judicial, hospital, child welfare, the people who receive the least amount of benefits and get the greatest bad results are African Americans. And so with that being said, that has to have an effect on these individuals. And so would you share what you think about that?
I don't even think too much about the systems, because I know that the systems, though we have been conditioned to believe that we're benefiting more than others from the systems, I don't think the systems is the most important thing to us, because none of those systems work for us. So I'm more into we working for ourselves through our family structure to get those things that we need to get. That's the only thing I see. And hopefully I'm understanding your question.
You are.
Okay.
And I just would say this. If a young Black male is in second grade and says something like, I want to be a president, in any state, how do you think the average teacher is going to respond to him when he says, I want to be president?
Negatively. So that's what I said. I don't care what system it is. It's not structured for us. I have to go through, I have 6 children. So I've put 6 kids through, and my own experience with our school district. So I know what happens in schools.
Okay.
You can say teachers are this underpaid or whatever, but I've always worked with children in church. I was raised in church. I have a passion for children. I can see children on the street fighting, and I'm gonna tell them stop. They had some kids fighting in front of my house. I went out there, broke it up. I called the police because one had a gun. I went talked to the girls. I gave them my testimony. So that's who I am. I'm not gonna be fearful of the children, because I know they're lost, and sometimes they just need to hear a word. So, but I think in this school district, I believe that if you don't have passion and compassion, don't be there, because you're forming some opinions in the minds of our children that they will never change. I don't care what I tell my children. I tell my children, we don't, now we played a dozen, we even do mama jokes with me sitting right there, yo mama jokes. So we played a dozen or whatever, but we never do things like, some of my kids are really slender, some of them are bigger. You don't address that, because we're not trying to attack each other's self-esteem, because you can say something one time and a child live with it for the rest of their lives. And so the school district is not structured, the school system, it needs to change. And I really don't even know how it needs to change. But even rappers you hear, my teacher told me I wasn't going to ever be anything. And usually if it's a Black child, it's a Black teacher. So why would a Black teacher have such negativity come out their mouths to one of our children?
This is my point.
Mm-hmm.
And you're validating it. And
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm being clear. I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
that the results that we see in young African-American youth, single African-American women, and adult African-American men is a direct reflection on the fact that, and I'm just using the school system as an example, that systems have played a role more than individuals. Meaning this, you said, in the school system I sent my kids to, let's take that out and say, if we went to New York, if we went to Chicago, if we went to Houston and looked at the second grader who is an African-American child telling a teacher, no matter what the teacher's race is, I want to be president. Could you agree with me that there's going to be a negative response from the teacher?
Yes, I can agree with that.
So the point that I'm trying to draw out is the fact that this is not a school system problem per se. Right. This is a system problem in education. And the reason that that will affect us, you use the best example that I could think of, when an African-American teacher has that response. Why would you respond to someone who looks like you, knowing that they're going to go through some things that you went through? And I'm telling you, because systems that have perpetuated and that perpetuate benefits for those who are not African-American and people who look African-American, meaning we go way back, and we're not going too deep. We go way back. We get off into the dark complexion African-American versus light complexion. I'm saying that when I've been told in second grade, I said, man, I want to be a president. The system has told me that's an impossibility. Don't look that far ahead. When I become an adult, the effects of that socialization are that I'm going to tell people who look like me, you can't be a president. But if I was a white male with the same grades and I said that, the sky's the limit. So you not only have people who are not African-Americans being socialized by systems to basically look at African-Americans with disdain, disrespect, and disregard. But you also have African-Americans who have been affected by that. And the reason I'm bringing that out, because when we're dealing with the subjects like you are on TikTok and stuff, it's deeper than just what I do. In other words, I do have self-hatred for women. Yeah, I just want to run through y'all. I just want to get as many as I want to, and it's whatever. If y'all didn't want me, you shouldn't have slept with me in the first place. Where did that attitude come from? Well, his daddy wasn't around. Okay, even if his daddy wasn't around, do you think that if his teachers had called him to a degree of excellence, if his coaches had called him to a degree of excellence, if he had any kind of involvement with the judicial system, if they called him to excellence, because I've been involved with the judicial system, and a lot of times what one race is given probation for, another race is sent to prison. Right. That's going to change how I look at things. And so this hate that was perpetuated against me by a system, not just individuals, by a system, because I heard the same things when I'm in this state, that state, and the other state, they're going to have an effect that creates a syndrome. And I'm saying we're seeing these effects. And I'm glad that people are dealing with them. But if we just deal with individuals, meaning you raise your kids right, and I'm not getting, real personal, but let's say you get married and the man who was not there, he's the great man. I'm still telling you that if the systems aren't affected, then those individuals are going to continue to reap the least amount of benefits. That's all I was trying to bring out.
Okay. Well, my answer to that is, again, I don't even pay attention to the systems because I believe it should start at home. Okay. Even if a child had a teacher that told them, for instance, if it was one of my children and a teacher ever told one of my children they couldn't be something, I'm going to correct and let my child know that, because they will come tell me. And I'll say, well, I raised you to know and believe you can do whatever you want to do. You can be whatever you want to be. And I'll tell you a story from that also. And I will go to the school and correct the teacher and tell her, you shouldn't be telling any child that. You will have a long conversation. But my example of that is when I was in school, I was teased for these soup coolers I have on my face we call lips. I was teased from probably first grade to 12th grade for these lips. But I had a grandmother that said, Angela, you're beautiful. And now nobody can tell me nothing about these lips, about these 230 pounds. I don't care if I'm in New York or Texas. So I still believe that it's our family structure that will determine, just like the little boy. If he had a daddy at home telling him he can be what he ever wanted, whatever he wanted to be, he wouldn't even go to the school to ask the teacher because his daddy has already instilled in him that he can do it.
Okay. And I'm not going to belabor the point, but I just want to go one step deeper.
Okay.
If I say I agree with you, still in real time, meaning it's 2022, in real time, systems have for centuries perpetuated low self-esteem among African Americans. And so being very historical in what I'm asking is, there's no African American men who have not been touched by systems that socialized us, unbeknownst to us a lot of times, to think less of ourselves or more than ourselves. And when I say more than ourselves, a lot of time, I'm just going to use this as an example. I heard a fact the other day. It said that the African Americans are unlike any other race when it comes to spending.
Right.
Meaning other races, the majority spend according to need. African Americans predominantly have spending habits based upon want. Now that's the statement, but I'm saying that's perpetuated because a lot of times systems have basically told African Americans that the only way that you can be respected is to have acquired certain things. And that thinking has been perpetuated for centuries. So when you say that the home life is the place where a good upbringing begins, I'm saying I agree with you 100%, Angela. But I'm just wanting to put it on your mind that what about when every home has been affected by the way systems have treated African-American men, to where, because we're humans, we've all to a certain extent been socialized in ways that we don't even understand. And that is reflected in how we treat one another.
Mhm.
And it is reflected in the violence that we exercise, especially one towards another.
Mhm.
And I hear you clearly say, hey, this is what I concern myself with. And I respect that. And I recognize that. I just wanted to impart that the same way you've imparted some things upon me, and I've imparted some things upon you. This is something that I'm coming to a realization of, that Sean is just not, and I'm just speaking for me, it's just not get a good education, learn what you can learn, and help everybody you can help. It's that. But if you don't begin to learn about systems and the effects that they have on individuals, you will always have the same type of individuals, and it's unending. But if a system changes, then you begin to see different results. And what was once a minority becomes a majority. So just sharing with you.
Okay.
So is there anything that you want to ask me? Because I know we've been
No,
here a little bit.
I'd like to comment on the systems.
Come on.
As you were talking, I was trying to figure out, how does the system affect my life today?
Yes.
As you were talking, to understand what you were saying, and I don't see it.
Okay.
I dropped out of high school 1 month before graduation. I had passed all the tests I needed to pass. When I had classmates that were, at that time, that's when they stopped the walking across the stage. If you didn't complete the exit level test, you couldn't walk. So it was a big thing in my day, about graduating and passing these tests. I had done what a lot of people were fighting to do. Yet I had a child at 17 and I dropped out of high school, um, to take care of my daughter 1 month before graduation. So I had to work and do some things. I think I may have gotten on welfare maybe a year, and I was able to get off. And so today I'm making six figures. So I'm a high school dropout. I went to college in between, but I'm a high school dropout making six figures. No systems kept me from achieving what I wanted to achieve. If they put something in place, which they did do something. That's another story. I'll get to that one. Put something in place to make me fail. My mother and grandmother put it in me to succeed. So I still believe everything we need comes from our family structure. I like to tell people all the time, in the Garden of Eden, before God created a church, he created a family. That is our strength, our family. We can beat whatever system. I should have been a statistic dropping out of high school at 17. I should have been a statistic. But I overcame that because of my family structures and the values that they instilled in me. So I'm fighting to see. Okay. But I believe with determination and motivation that's only imparted into us from those around us, we can do whatever we want to do. So I can't say, I sit in in meetings, sometimes the only woman and only Black woman with a room full of white men. That's nothing but God for a high school dropout. You know what I'm saying? So it was a system probably that allowed me to be there from the beginning. Affirmative action allowed me that position to even be there. But I can't see a system outside of the criminal system because it's so unfair. And thank God I haven't done anything to be able to get in that. But I just don't see a system. To me, it's just if we strengthen our families, we strengthen our neighborhoods, we strengthen our communities, we strengthen our little world, I believe.
Okay. And so based upon the amount of time that we've spent on this interview and the fact that I do hear you. And a lot of times when I'm having discussions with people, I'm like, are you listening to what they're saying? Yeah, I'm listening. But you continue with the same point when they just told you something. If you were listening, you would at least be silent or make an adjustment. And so with that understanding, I think that when we leave this interview, I'll think a little more. You'll think a little more. Yeah. And we've already established it. We need more interviews. So we'll take care of that. Is there anything that you like to share in closing?
Yes. I'm like I say, my passion is the family, the Black man being in position, the woman being in position. Then we don't have to worry how wild and crazy the kids are, because statistically, that's unlikely. My little grandbaby.
Okay.
But I'm pointing to her, get out, but she coming in. But so right now on my platforms, like I told you, I started with the women, but when the men started getting on the women, I'm like, it's kind of like in today's world, the men say, well, I can do it because the women do it. I'm like, bro, that don't make sense. That's like me saying I can do it because my kids do it. You know what I'm saying? That's what it sounds like you're saying. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't want to do something because the weaker below you is doing it. You should be setting the pace and the stage for everybody else to fall under. But I think that's my only thing. I love our people, and I wish we get our relationships together. I believe we're all working from trauma. That's why I started a lot. And the book I'm reading is The Boy Crisis. So that's why I started a lot of the research that I did, is because in my healing process, I was trying to understand more of me, where I was lacking, and what I need in the mate that I should be looking for. Because many times, a lot of women don't want to hear. Guys, when you tell guys, well, the statistics show a father not being in a home, this is what happens, this is what happens. The child is likely to not do well in society. And they'll say, well, tell women, well, you raised them and you're right. And sad to say, she raised them through her own trauma. We can look at both sides of the coin and say she raised them and she did a poor job, but she did the best she could. I believe in most instances, she did the best she could, but the result would have been better if the father was present. So yeah, so women have to accept accountability, and I believe that we're accepting that accountability by taking on the responsibility of raising the children many times alone. But the men have to accept the accountability that it's vital and important for them to be that biggest role model for their children.
Thank you. I'd like to close with saying one day I would love to taste one of those cakes or cupcakes or whatever it's like. I have numerous friends who have tasted and seen
Okay, good.
that the taste of heaven is for real.
Okay.
And so
Right.
we'll look into that. I thank you for
Okay.
your time and continue to
Okay.
encourage you to do what you're
Okay.
doing, and look forward to the next conversation that we
Okay.
have.
Okay. Hopefully I'm gonna be looking for it too. I enjoyed it, and anytime.
Okay. All
I'm gonna
right.
try to do better getting my schedule right to get you in.
Okay. Thank you.